Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Dr. T. Seshasai, retired Associate Professor of Philosophy, National College, Trisapalli. Now on the subject Indian culture, the paper will be on the Indian religion and philosophy, especially on the module Law of Karma and Moksa. Law of Karma and Moksa, they are intertwined. The law of karma determines the births and deaths of each and every individual. The goal of moksha is the highest goal, and one has to liberate from law of karma to attain moksha, the end of purusharthas. Now, we will see the objectives of the law of karma and moksha. In introduction, we are going to see the meaning and significance of law of karma. We will highlight the nature of the karma and moksha. To know the significance of karma and moksha in social life and the individual, and we are going to see the summary of it. Karma and moksha are two very important concepts in the classical Indian ethics. In a way, the entire classical Indian ethics is centered around these two concepts. Karma is action, and every action has a moral agent. In fact, action, rebirth and liberation are interrelated. This is so with actions and rebirth. The accumulation of karma in the account of moral agent necessarily gives rise to births. Karma is the principle which determines the future of life of an individual. The quest for liberation is invariably linked up with the law of karma. Now, we are going to see the meaning and origin of this word. Karma is derived from the Sanskrit root kri, to do or to act. To act in our life is very, very important, and as Gita says, a man cannot live without any action. Krishna goes to the extent of saying that even thinking is an act. So, without thinking, man cannot live. Therefore, actionless man cannot be imagined in this world. So, there are many actions. We may think that whatever we do does not belong to this type of action or to a particular type of action. The scientific action and moral action, psychological thinking, all these come under action. In science, what we say is for each and every cause there is an effect. Similarly, by doing moral actions also, if it is a good action, then it leads to punya, and when we indulge in criminal acts, it leads to papa. So, the moral actions are the cause of our future life. Now, it is stated that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, by performing good actions, one becomes good, and by performing bad actions, one is branded as bad. As a principle of moral determinism, karma makes us to realize that what you sow, that you reap. But karma cannot be reduced to fatalism. It is a principle of freedom, although it is conditioned by previous actions. Every human individual is free to act at present as to determine his or her future. Now, what we are going to see is, it is not fatalism, it is not predeterminism. Though we have taken births because of our past karmas, that does not mean we are entangled in this life forever. Each and every man has got his freedom of will, and he can escape or free from the actions or the effects of actions, from the bondage, from the law of karma as it is. So nobody should think that as we have taken birth in this world, we cannot be free from our law of karma. The freedom of the will is given more importance in Hindu philosophy as it is, and more especially in Hindu ethics. So, freedom of the will is stressed and it is more important, so that with the freedom of will we can escape the bondage, we can overcome the law of karma, we can do away with the law of karma, and we can get release from the bondage. Now, perhaps it is the history of classical Indian tradition we come across only two schools, namely Ajivakas and Charvakas, who interpreted karma in terms of fatalism. They envisage that the entire life of human individual is predetermined. Therefore, there is nothing one could do or attempt to do in one's life. But all the schools of thought rejected this conception and held that every moral agent has freedom to act by deliberate choice of actions and thoughts to influence one's own course of life. Of course, one may find a paradox here. The paradox is that the law of karma vacillates between freedom and determination. Freedom has no meaning unless the free actions performed by the individual have power to determine future events. If my regular exercise and diet intake do not have any determinate state of my health, then there is no point talking about the freedom of one's action. In ethics, there is no dispute in accepting the conditional existence of individual in terms of circumstances, situations, and past actions. However, this condition is not complete in itself. The freedom of individuals in the form of choices may bring in new determining factors or conditions into situation. This clearly shows that there is an element of freedom of will to control over the conditions of existence. Although we admit that our birth was conditioned by the law of karma, there is every possibility for individuals to affect the course of action of the present life through freedom of will to transform the conditions of future birth in the next life. Excepting Ajivakas and Charvakas, all others accepted the good conduct and right knowledge would be effective in transforming one's condition from bondage to liberated state. Now, we are going to see the types of karmas. Totally, Hindu moral philosophers accepted three types of karmas. One is Sanchita karma, the next is Prarabdha karma, the third one is Agami karma. Sanchita karma is nothing but what we have already done in the past. The past is stored, it is accumulated by our past actions. Now what we are enjoying in this life, after taking birth into this world, we enjoy the Prarabdha karma, that which has already started. Now, what all we do in this present life, it will definitely affect our future life. That is called Agami karma. Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma and Agami karma. Sanchita karma can be equated to FD, fixed deposit, which we have not touched. But the interest, now we are enjoying the interest of that fixed deposit. Then the Agami karma is just like we save the money through recurring deposit. So whatever we do in this life, it will have its own effect, whether it is bad or good, in future. So Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma and Agami karma, they bind the individual soul in this world. The karmas that are in operation in the present life are called Prarabdha karma. The karmas that are going to be accumulated are all called Agami karmas, or the karmas in store. An individual has to exhaust all these three forms of karmas to be a liberated person. The way to get liberated from these three forms of karma leading to Moksa is something very precious and ultimate goal of human life. Moksa as a Purushartha. Hindu social philosophy is developed on the firm foundation of the fourfold goals of humans: Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Though all the four are referred to as fundamental human goals, the secular values of Artha and Kama are considered to be so far the reason that man is naturally prone to seek them, whereas Dharma and Moksha are termed fundamental since anyone who is capable of reasoning out and philosophizing cannot but feel that his uniqueness consists in seeking these. Thus, reason for referring to both the sets of values as fundamental goals of human life is not the same. But the ancient Hindu philosophers, considering both the types of values, fundamental points to their careful analysis of human nature and to their attempts at synthesizing the different types of life of values the human mind cherishes and aspires for. Moksha is the ultimate goal in life according to the Hindu philosophers. It is not simply the negation of life, but the reorientation of man's pursuit of values. Now, here the moksha concept has been explained, or rather misconceived and misinterpreted by many as negating this world. It is not so. It is actually detachment as well as attachment. Whenever you attach yourself to the world, you will be bound by the worldly attractions. One should detach himself from these worldly pleasures because he would have enjoyed everything. Continuous prolonging attachment to this world will bind this individual soul and he will take births and deaths continuously. He will be caught in the vicious cycle of samsara. So, in order to escape from this, we have to develop some attitude of detachment. The detachment from the worldly pleasures, it will lead us to moksha, the highest goal of human life. The Hindu concept of moksha is put forward as an ideal, for it is a worthwhile goal to be realized in the life of every individual. The concept of moksha by its very nature points to the cultivation of the tendencies of detachment from the worldly objects. If individuals exhibit a sense of detachment which, when properly cultivated, results in the ultimate human goal called liberation. Since the concept of moksha understood in this sense necessarily involves the attitude of withdrawing oneself from the worldly objects, many think that the Hindu ethics is pessimistic, for it encourages world negating tendency. But one must note that presence of otherworldly or worldly negating tendency is not against any form of social philosophy. The sense of detachment as a negating principle only serves as a background of detachment from the immediate world of the senses, which is necessary for any charitable deed or social welfare. As long as man is content with immediate and is not concerned with what might be beyond his immediate perceptions and requirements, he may not be motivated by any other consideration than his self-goal. So here I want to mention that Artha, Kama, though they are lower values of life, without Kama, you cannot attach yourself to moksha. Without Kama, we cannot act. Without Kama, we cannot work for the property or work for anything else. Even to maintain the body, we should have interest or Kama. So Kama, though considered as a lower form of value, it is the basic fundamental value which pushes the individual to from attachment to detachment. Without attachment, there cannot be any detachment. Detachment comes after satiating or gratifying all our pleasures of the world. This may itself be responsible for purely egoistic and self-regarding tendencies and activities. To get out of oneself, to become other-regarding, is nothing but a kind of sense of detachment. This sense of detachment is possible only when we have a metaphysical worldview. In Indian ethics, the importance is given to the psychology also. A man cannot be purely egoistic or an introvert, or he cannot be too oriented towards the society, that is extrovert. The life is always in between extroversion and introversion. Most of the people in this world are ambiverts, that is in between introversion and extroversion. Considering this point, Indian ethics actually stresses that man is both acts individually as well as he acts for the society. We can understand this fact that by our analysis of human nature, no human being is completely individualistic or solely social. One finds a mixture of both these tendencies in human beings. The individual and the social elements are so inextricably woven together in the texture of human nature that the individual cannot escape from looking inward, keeping himself aloof from society and analyzing himself, his own thoughts and feelings. At the same time, he cannot be so continuously or always because of other elements in his nature which do make him outward looking or socially inclined. Hindu social philosophy is no exception to this rule. We often find otherworldly tendencies. We do find ideals put forward solely for the individuals. With all this, there is a harmonious social ethics in Hindu thought. However, the social and subjective aspects of human nature cannot be separated completely. Now, there are a lot of examples we actually see in this world. Though people are satisfied with the sensuous pleasures, at times we read in newspapers that many of the actors and actresses, without knowing their goal, without knowing the highest goal, or without thinking over anything, they commit suicide. So, Artha and Kama, though they give certain pleasures in our life, the highest ideal is Moksha, and Dharma as it is, if it regulates, if it channelizes the Artha and Kama, we can avoid such unfortunate happenings in the life. So, when we realize that Artha and Kama can give us a little or the pleasure what is necessary in our life, directed or channelized or controlled by Dharma, and when we see the Moksha as the highest goal, then we can realize that the law of karma cannot bind us and we can follow the righteous path to attain self-perfection or moksha. The subjective goals like moksha are not without their social implication or some influence on society. On the whole, the concept of moksha refers to the subjective aspect of human nature. The realization of this ideal by the individual is considered to be a consequence of his controlling the various elements in him. Though as an ideal, it is pursued by the individual as a personal value, once self-realization takes place, he cannot but be useful to others. That is, one may think that once a man is realized, he will keep silent and he will be in his own mind. It is not like that. Take the case of Adi Shankara or Lord Buddha. Though after attaining the enlightenment or after attaining nirvana, Buddha worked for the society. After attaining self-realization, Adi Shankara worked for the society. Sri Ramanuja, Sri Madhva, all these great saints and philosophers, after realization, they worked for the society. That is, after realization, one should not think that this world is nothing for us. They are indifferent. That is, the actions they perform, they cannot touch. The fruits of the actions or the effects of the actions can never touch them. And the example is the seed and the fried seed. Seed, when it is actually planted in the earth, it will grow into a big tree. That is the nature of the seed. That there all common people like us, they come. But the saints, the realized souls, they are like fried seeds. The fried seed, when it is sowed in the earth, it cannot grow. Similarly, the realized souls, they are not affected by the actions, whether it is good or bad. They will be indifferent to actions, but they will be going on acting in such a way that they cannot affect them. In this sense, the concept of moksha connotes the concept of spiritual perfection. When the individual aims at perfecting himself spiritually, he has to shed off all his egoistic and selfish tendencies. When perfection is attained by the individual, he does not cease to work for the welfare of others. Hindu philosophy does not merely indulge in speculating over the problems of life, it also introduces us to right ways of living. It is in the concept of moksha in which correlation between theory and practice finds its completeness. Thus, it is set as the goal of all Hindu ethics. The aim of moksha is not merely acquisition of knowledge or mere self-discipline, but a certain amount of immediate experience resulting from both. It is this experience typified in Jivan Mukti or the resulting attitude of mind towards life and the world that should be understood when we speak of moksha as the ideal or the ultimate goal of the Hindu. This takes us on to a consideration of the concept from two different perspectives. They are negative and positive views concerning moksha. The aim of both negative and positive view is the cultivation of absolute and unqualified detachment from worldly objects. The other view aims at detachment from the mere particular and, in effect, to equal attachment to all. Though thus differing essentially, the influence of both the teachings alike in ascetic nature, so far as their bearing upon the disciple himself is concerned. But the manner in which that result is brought about is somewhat different as the view is monistic or dualistic. That is, in explaining the concept of moksha, Advaitins, Vishishtadvaitins, Dvaitins and many philosophers, they differ. One may follow a particular system and then say that this moksha is nothing but identifying the self with the Brahman. According to Adi Shankara, the Brahman and Atman, they are not different. They are one and the same. They are identical. To put it in a nutshell, Brahma Satyam Jagam Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Aparaha. Brahman is the only reality. The world is non-real. It is not unreal. It is non-real. Then between Atman and Brahman, between Jiva and Brahman, there is no difference at all. This is in a nutshell the philosophy of Advaita, and because of Maya, we come into the existence and we come into bondage, we struggle, we suffer without knowing that everything is Brahman. Advaita never says the world is different and world is something different from Brahman. It exists in Brahman, it is not of Brahman. It is always Brahmani. World exists in Brahman. Whenever we see Brahman, we cannot see the world. Whenever we see the world with full of attachment, with full of ignorance, we cannot see the ultimate reality, which is the basis of the entire world. Advaita also stresses the view of Jivan Mukti. The Jivan Mukti concept is explained in Advaita, that is, one can attain moksha while living. While living, if you practice the path of jnana, one can attain liberation, one can attain moksha, which is also called aparokshanubhuti in Advaita. It is also called anubhuti. So this anubhuti or personal experience or anubhava which leads to moksha. after attaining moksha, the self, the individual self, realizes that the entire world is nothing but Brahman, the entire world exists in Brahman, the entire world is seen as Brahman. So, he can never find any difference between him and the other. The others are in him and he is in others. Similarly, whenever we see the pluralistic tendency or whenever we go to the other bhakti schools, they say that the bhakti is the only path through which you can attain moksha. For example, Sri Ramanuja never accepts Jivan Mukti. He will say that Videha Mukti, that is, a man can, though attains moksha in this life, he can attain moksha only after leaving this body. After leaving this body, corporeal body, he will attain moksha. There is no concept called moksha while living. It is only moksha after getting rid of this human body or material body. So this moksha can be attained with the help of bhakti. And this bhakti should be like Taila Dharavat. This Taila Dharavat means whenever a man pours oil from one vessel to another vessel, we cannot find any dripping or any space in between one drop to another drop. So similarly, we should constantly contemplate or we should constantly love God. We should always be devoted to God. Then we can attain moksha. Even in moksha, we cannot identify with the God. We can attain Sahyajya. We can be a part of the God. We can occupy a place in the body of the God. We can never become one with God. So there, Advaita and Visishta Advaita of Ramanuja, they differ. The monastic conception, whose typical representative was Shankara, believes that knowledge or jnana alone is the means of attaining moksha or release from the cycle of births and deaths. According to this school, universal soul or Brahman and the individual soul or Atman are essentially one and the same. But due to ignorance, we consider ourselves as separate from Brahman. The knowledge of Brahman Atman identity will deliver us from bondage. It is due to the metaphysical error that we see variety where there is also the unity of Brahman. It is because of each one of us regards himself as distinct from the one others that we strive to guard and delimit ourselves from the others. In other words, all evil is traceable to the affirmation of the finite self and the consequent tendency to live not in harmony with the rest of the world but in opposition to it. The instinct to live or to survive to be, which is what ahankara signifies, is a common feature of all animate existence and it need not be wholly suppressed since it is an indirect manifestation of the individual's desire for self-realization. It is hence to be properly channelized in such a way that the individual replaces merely the individual self by the wider self. This is the significance of the Advaita concept of Atma, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, which represents the realization of the universal self in one's own self as the highest ideal of life. A man can attain liberation even during life, and when he becomes liberated, he is known as Jivan Mukta. A Jivan Mukta's experiences pain and pleasure, but neither really matters to him. He does not necessarily give up all activity, as is illustrated by the strenuous life which Shankara himself led, but it does not proceed from any selfish impulse or even a sense of obligation to others. The identity feeling that the liberated man gets is described in the Gita, who sees all beings in himself and himself in all beings. He will dislike none. Gita, for example, here it says, I want to stress that in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, a man becomes sthita prajna, that is, firm in knowledge. For Sthita Prajna, there is no difference. There is no nothing like I or mine. Everything is one, and he will realize, or he is the person who acts for everybody. He will seize everything in him and him in everything. So the Lord Krishna also, ultimately one can attain nirvana through karma, jnana, bhakti margas. Though there are differences between the monastic and the pluralistic systems, both agree in holding that ultimately the individual is to get rid of egoism is indicated by the insistence on the part of the devotees on voluntary self-surrender to God by the pluralistic systems. The scope of activity is also greatly extended, since surrendering oneself to God implies also the obligation towards that all that is, and not merely towards fellow men. The dualistic and pluralistic systems insist that this is accomplished by the bhakti marga, or the path of devotion. Starting from the position that man is not non-different from God, these systems hold that by cultivating certain virtues, the individual can realize God. Sri Ramanuja, the typical representative of Bhakti cult, specifies certain qualities for one to deserve the name of devotee of God. Discrimination, viveka, amukha, freedom from desires, practice, abhyasa, doing good to others, kriya, purity, kalyana, consisting of truthfulness, satyam, straightforwardness, arjaram, kindness, daya, non-violence, ahimsa, charity, dana, cheerfulness, anavasadam, and absence of excessive hilariousness, anyad driharsha. That is, whenever we find all these qualities in a particular man, then only he is called a devotee. If one lacks any one of this, then he cannot be called a devotee, and he can never worship God with full heartedness. So that is the essence of it. The qualities which is referred here, they are the qualities of a pure devotee. Whenever you have the qualities, then one cannot see the difference between color or caste or anything else. It may be there cannot be any difference in caste. There is nation difference or individual difference, male, female, or any other difference. From this, it is evident that bhakti is not sentimental attachment to God, and that true bhakti transforms the entire outlook of the individual and makes him more ethical and moral. Bhakti is of the nature of supreme love of God. Supremacy love consists of three things. First, it should be free from egoism and must be untainted by any base of ulterior motive. Secondly, it should prevent any other worldly love, understood as the narrow love of things of the world, in the mind of the devotee. Thirdly, there should be complete self-forgetfulness on the part of the lover. Paradoxically, the meaning of the supreme love of God can best be understood by analyzing love in the realm of interpersonal situations in our ordinary life. That is, the first we should be free from egoism. The second point is that we should love. We should love only God, not the worldly thing. We should not, that is, between the lover and the love, there should not be any ulterior motive. If a lover, that is we always love the God. He is the lover and we are the loves. And whenever we love God, there should not be any ulterior motive. The love is actually continuous. It is a flow towards to the lover. The third point is, the same thing is applied in the empirical level. One should not think that whenever we love God and then whenever we attain Moksa, he should not think that he is a different man. So that's why the Indian philosophy always stresses that whenever one becomes a God, or whenever a devotee attains Moksha, he always sees that God is everywhere. In Vishishtadvaita especially, this in Bhakti movement, the Bhakti school says that each and every man is a part and parcel of the Lord Narayana. So, whenever he works in the society, through the society, and by the society only he can attain moksha. This is the essence of the Vishishtadvaita's concept of bhakti. We should see that everything is Narayana and everybody is a amsha of the Narayana. So, there is no difference between devotees. There is no difference between the amshas or the parts of the limbs of a human body. Each and every limb is important. So, considering that each and every limb is important, he will take care, he will help others, and through helping others, through serving others, he will attain moksha. So, that is Manava Sevaye Madhava Seva. If one serves the human beings, then it is equivalent to serving of God. The various types of bhaktas differ mainly in varying degrees of spiritual perfection attained by them, and that the basic attitude of devotees towards life and the world is analogous to that of the Jivan Mukta. In its most intensive sense, the term bhakti points also to human experience, which is but a culmination of all spiritual practices. This transforms the attitude of the individual so much that the individual considers all as God's creatures and hence as fellow creatures. So he begins doing selfless service in the spirit of worship of God. Moksha cannot be reached by bypassing morality for ignoring it, that the good life is indispensable and absolutely necessary for attaining spiritual perfection, and that there is no jumping from an unregenerate life of impulses and instincts to moksha. So, to conclude, as stated above, karma and moksha are diametrically opposed to each other. Where there is karma, there is no moksha. This does not mean the Hindu ethics suggests the individual to shun all their actions as moral agents to attain moksha. This is a misconception. Every individual, as a moral agent, has to perform one's actions in this world of object. For each individual has to fulfill his or her obligations towards the other. After performing one's obligations towards others, one can aspire for liberation. Even to attain liberation, one has to perform certain actions. The ways of liberations are karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. The way of knowledge, jnana yoga. The way of action, karma yoga. The way of devotion, bhakti yoga. All these three parts are equally important at one level or the other. So, the law of karma and moksha are the two important aspects of Indian philosophy, and the karma binds the individual soul to the world, and release from these karmas lead to moksha. To attain moksha, there are many ways. Of these ways, karma, jnana and bhakti are most important margas. The one more marga is also mentioned. It is called Raja Yoga. It is this Raja Yoga or the yoga patronized by the royals. That's why the name is Raja Yoga, which is nothing but Patanjali's Raja Yoga. So in this, through yoga also you get moksha. So in order to attain liberation, one has to do or follow any one of these margas. Without karma, there is no moksha. What I mean here is, without working, without doing something, without indulging in any one of these paths, one cannot attain moksha. For further details, please refer e-text. Thank you.